He spoke obviously about the Kinahan cartel in general. He directed some of his comments at people involved with the Kinahan Organisation, saying they should look about them, they should see what is happening here, and they should remember that there is $15 million with US federal law enforcement, and they should consider that.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the sins of the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Garda Commissioner Drew Harris has urged members of the Kinahan Organisation to speak with police and to go witness protection against their bosses. In bizarre comments made in the aftermath of Sha McGovern's arrest in Dubai, Harris said there's a $15 million reward up for grabs and a place on the programme used in the United States for whistleblowers from major Mexican cartels. Today I'm talking with Niall Donald about the comments and about the future days for the caged McGovern. This is Crime World, a podcast from SundayWorld.com.
Afternoon, Nicola. So the news of Sha McGovern's arrest has led to the guards, who traditionally never like making statements on criminals, have sort of broken the mould with a statement from Drew Harris.
They have, and I mean, there was clearly a sort of a planned route to, I suppose, unveil this news, and it was undone by the fact that ourselves and other media got a little sniff of it early yesterday morning. Now, the Garda Commissioner was in Cork yesterday afternoon, and he did make a statement. Now, he refused weirdly to name Sha McGovern.
Yeah, I mean, this shows you
what was the point of that?
Well, I don't know, because, I mean, it was obviously followed very shortly by Interpol putting out red notice arrested and a picture of Sha McGovern. So, but look, that's the way the guards have always traditionally operated. They don't like naming people pre-conviction of any type, even though the guards named him before, and when the sanctions were laid. On this occasion, he didn't feel he could, and I only can presume he got legal advice.
I think it's just a political. I'd say there was an arrangement that, Interpol would be the first to name him or something. They'd come in second, and it all just got screwed up, the plan, as great plans do.
Yeah, I mean, like he made some interesting points. He spoke obviously about the Kinahan cartel in general. He said, I would speak to them unusually. He said he directed some of his comments at people involved with the Kinahan Organisation, saying, I would speak to them unusually, perhaps other members of the Kinahan organised crime gang. They should look about them. They should see what is happening here, and they should remember that there is $15 million with US federal law enforcement, and the US federal protection scheme is open, and they should consider that. I mean, I thought for all that we say the guards are all hyper cautious in their public statements, I thought that was quite unusual, was it?
It's truly bizarre. So what he's basically saying is that the Kinahans and really the inner circle should rat on the Kinahan leadership, and they should go to the US to claim this bounty, and that they should go into US federal witness protection scheme. But I don't think the US want any of the Kinahans in the witness protection scheme. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you look at those wanted posters and the 5 million, that is for information around sort of their financial setup.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose we know that the Irish authorities are attempting to extradite Daniel Kinahan. I mean, that's been said publicly at this point in connection with at least two suspected offences. Number one, the murder of Eddie Hutch, and also the second offence they're seeking to extradite him on is for directing a criminal organisation, which is kind of a separate investigation even. I don't know if he's speaking to members of the Kinahan cartel in relation to Christie Senior and Christie Junior. There has been almost no talk about them being extradited to Ireland, either, open talk or behind the scenes talk. Obviously the 5 million reward is not just for Daniel, it's for father Christie Senior and Junior as well. So I don't know if those comments are directed towards people who might have information about them, and maybe the DEA and the US officials do have them in their sights. I don't know, but it certainly was. I wouldn't have predicted that's what he was going to say, I have to say.
No, I'm not sure that he doesn't get a bit maybe caught in the moment. I'm just pulling up the poster, right? And it says, so I've got Christopher Vincent Kinahan here. So the $5 million US reward is for information leading to the financial disruption of the Kinahan criminal organisation, or the arrest and or conviction of Christopher Vincent Kinahan. Now, I think what the Commissioner what was lost a little bit on him there might have been how much work has gone into the investigations here into the Kinahan organised crime group. From 2016, from the February of 2016, when that all really kicked in, the first figure we ever got was €100 million pumped into the policing of them in that first year. And on it has gone. And a huge amount of resources has gone in to getting us into a position, firstly, that we are in the process now of bringing home Sha McGovern. But we've been very vocal about wanting Daniel Kinahan here. The others that were named in the sanctions, let's look at Bernard Clancy and Ian Dixon and their families and whoever else they have out in Dubai. What's happening with them? Are they going to be allowed to stay in Dubai now that this sort of, I suppose, the mopping up of the Kinahans has properly begun? Are they going to be deported? Do Dubai want them there? Are they there completely legally? How can their businesses operate when they're sanctioned?
Well, Ian Dixon, who is a relative of the Kinahan sons, certainly was one of the people who was registered, had companies registered. There was very much a footprint for his existence out there, and we can only presume if he was registering companies and registering addresses that he was there legitimately and had visas and work permits. Bernard Clancy who grew up in the Oliver Bond, was a late arrival in Dubai. He had spent a lot of time during the feud in Spain and had been continued to link to the Kinahan drug operation in Europe. So we've no idea what his status is. But look, it's very, very interesting. I think you can see that the fact that Sha McGovern has been arrested now means that, what we know as well is that paperwork and how that has to be done and those contacts and everything along those lines have now been aligned between the Dubai officials and the Irish officials. And while there's obviously going to be complications in every case, the route is really clear now for Daniel Kinahan to be arrested. I mean, the others, and Christie Senior, certainly, you don't hear that underground sort of rumours that they have this case or that case against him. No doubt his involvement is at a high level in regards to the movements of money. But yeah, it's.
I don't think it's quite clear where he's wanted, or Christopher Jr., because certainly Christopher Jr. was traditionally involved in the money laundering end of the Kinahan operation. And that money laundering end of the operation, the big investigation is happening in Spain, where Johnny Morrissey is under investigation and was in custody, is now kind of out on, license. I think he has to sign on. But that's the massive big money laundering end of things in Spain, right? Here in Ireland, we're investigating the setup of them. If you take that, McGovern and Kinahan, or Daniel, that they're wanted here for directing a criminal organisation. I suppose Christie Jr. and Christie Senior are also seen as heads of that criminal organisation. So there is obviously a natural possibility that charges could be levelled against them here for that. But with the US, there was some trickle of money going into the US economy through that, was it Hop-Ho Promotions, that was under Ian Dixon's name, and they were trying to move into the American market with the boxing. But apart from that, it seems that the DEA and the Americans are on board because of their links to what we've been told, the funding of Hezbollah. and the movement of cocaine on behalf of that group and on behalf of Iran and Russia, which seems like, there's all sorts of different laws in the States, of course. And I think if the States really want you, they get you. And I suppose that's the worst case scenario for the Kinahans. No doubt Drew Harris's comments, while we're sort of unscrambling them a little bit and wondering exactly what they mean, no doubt they did send a chill up the spines of the three Kinahans.
No doubt at all. We've seen these RICO investigations in America, which is, they were put in place, these RICO, racketeering, organised crime investigations, as they're called. They were put in place to get the mafia. And basically what it means is people don't have to be tied to any one crime directly. If they can show their associates have committed crime, you can be done for all sorts of things. I mean, it really dismantled the mafia, and it's been used then against cartel figures from Mexico and Colombia, where although they didn't even commit a lot of crimes necessarily on US soil, and often they weren't even there, the Americans were able to piece together these investigations saying the organization committed these crimes, this person is at the top of this organization, therefore they're guilty of the crimes.
It's a simpler process surely though with the Mexicans, because there's that direct route into the US, their biggest market for drugs, and the weapons going back the other direction, etc. So the charges leveled against them are that they flooded the US with fentanyl and other drugs.
However, we do know the DEA were at Daniel's wedding, and they weren't there just to keep abreast of developments and wish him well. So they must have an investigation on some level into these people. Obviously there is also then these state investigations into the movement of money on behalf of terrorist organizations. And if a terrorist organization is prescribed in the US, such as Hezbollah, it's quite possible that they could somebody who funds that organization could become vulnerable to law enforcement. But again, it's total speculation, but obviously the Americans have a role there, and that in itself it would send a chill up your spine, because it's one thing to be, sitting in Portlaoise with your PlayStation and your, nipping down to the tuck shop, but it'd be another thing to be in Supermax with El Chapo,
for sure,
waving at him,
locked up 23 hours a day and all the rest of it, and locked away for the rest of your life. My information today, up to date, is that this is a waiting game, essentially, that we are now waiting to hear from the United Arab Emirates what is the next step, what is the next move. It's almost like Sha McGovern is the blueprint for the rest of them to come, and they're going to just wait and see what happens in court. He seems to be locked up in a Dubai prison. He will or not necessarily be able to fight this extradition. That isn't even clear. He could be home by next week, I'm told, or it could be that, this will be a protracted process. But I don't think anyone believes that is going to happen after all this time.
No, and I mean, let's be realistic. Dubai is not, it's not the EU. I mean, certainly they have laws and they have courts and they have judges, but it's not a democracy. It's not, the accountability of the legal system is to political figures. So if they want rid of him and they've decided to get him, he's going to go. His civil rights aren't going to save him, or legal technicalities aren't going to allow him to walk free. Like that part of the world it is different than Ireland. So look, he's inevitably going to come back. Inevitably, in my opinion, and just my opinion, Daniel Kinahan is likely to follow. And the other two, that's more of a mystery, I think.
So we were talking yesterday about the relationship between Sha McGovern and Daniel Kinahan, and how he kind of almost switched sides into Kinahan's camp and became his right-hand man. And of course, during those announcements in April 2022, it was described that he was his closest confidant, and, all sort of communication went through Sha McGovern. So I've been having a little look back over all I have in my files and my notes, and I think I've identified. I've done a piece for Sunday for the newspaper, for the actual newspaper, where I have identified how that happened and when it happened. That, when Sha McGovern elevated himself from, he was an opportunist actually, McGovern, but he elevated himself from right-hand man of Liam Byrne, who was way down a chain, not even in command, to becoming the number 2 in the Kinahan cartel. And I've identified that sort of what happened that made him get so close to Kinahan, and then how he sort of ambitiously kept himself in that position since. And, you'd wonder how he's feeling now in a cell in an Emirates prison with a clear path back to the Special Criminal Court and all that goes with that. Were those decisions good? Was it worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what age is he now? He's in his early 40s. So a life sentence. I always look back at Brian Meehan, there's not been that many people convicted of gangland murders over the years. But one of them, for example, is Brian Meehan, a very notorious figure. In fact, people say about Brian Meehan that he's quite reformed at this point and regrets his past to a degree. And he's been quite a model prisoner in recent years. However, he still remains in the prison system. And it's approaching, 3 decades, or probably not 3 decades yet, but approaching, I think he's nearly 3 decades when you include remand, maybe 28 years. So somebody like McGovern, if he does go to prison and if he is found guilty, he will not be out until he's in his pension years. It's a hard route ahead of him.
It's such a, people suffer losses and their lifestyle and their lives change dramatically. But to go from that opulence and wealth and freedom and power that he has enjoyed at Daniel Kinahan's side for the past decade almost, to a prison cell and to be told when you're going to eat, what you're going to eat and where, and locked up at night, and to lose all those freedoms is just an enormous fall.
It's an enormous fall. And as well, obviously, the people that were initially convicted as part of the feud, they had this big organisation on the outside that supported them, that, paid their families money or paid them money, looked after them. By the time, if Sha McGovern is convicted of murder, that organisation won't be out there to look after him. He'll go into prison with having allegedly played a role in a large number of feud killings. He will have to be kept separate from loads of people. It's actually, so when the IRA prisoners, for example, went into prison, they had this big organisation outside to support them. There'd be prisoners' nights, the families will be looked after. That won't be there for Sha McGovern. He will be under high security, being watched. And of course, he might end up continuing to share a cell with Daniel Kinahan. It's that, I suppose, is still possible.
I wonder what, we're jumping ahead a bit, but if there is a time that we see Daniel Kinahan being brought back, how that looks in the prison system, where is he still, while others have been locked away for so many years, they've lost their freedom, some of them are serving life sentences for murder on his behalf, etc. What are the feelings to him? Is he still God?
Well, I think there's 2 things. I mean, if you look at somebody like Trevor Byrne, who's a Kinahan associate, he's become this hugely powerful figure in Mountjoy, in terms of he's the most influential figure in there in terms of the drug dealing that's going on. So is Daniel Kinahan going to go in there, and is he, that's how the flow of contraband allows somebody to become a big figure in a prison system. Now, is Daniel Kinahan going to be getting people to collect dropsies thrown over the wall, and, getting prisoners who are getting day released to telling them to smuggle things back in, bring in back a phone, or else I'm going to break your legs? So he's not going to have to do that financially, maybe. But if he doesn't do that, does he lose that kind of power and influence? Obviously, he has a lot of people, associates that have gone to jail. But if you look at some of the other people in the Byrne organised crime group, or we but call them Kinahan figures, a lot of those relationships have broken down as well, and they may feel no particular loyalty to Daniel. But he will be, one thing is for sure, he'll be a celebrity criminal in the prison system. We obviously get accused of making celebrities out of criminals, but in a prison it's really, really like that, that they have this kind of in that world, people that are notorious have this kind of fame in a way. So Daniel,
but they
also will face that.
Only have that if they can do their time. There is that total sense of that you have to be able to do your time. You have to be tough enough to be able to suffer it, suck it up. You not be whinging in the corner, not be breaking down. There's no room for emotions and things like that in prison. So for somebody like Daniel Kinahan, who's never done a day in prison in his life, it'd be a huge change for him. Has McGovern been in prison before?
Well, I think Sha McGovern has a very small number of convictions. I think it was, very, very minor convictions. So he certainly has not been in prison for any length of time.
So he'll have the same kind of issues then, how you can cope or whether you can.
Yeah, he'll have the same issues, and he presumably, will he take it all on his back as well? He's obviously suffered a gunshot wound in the Regency Hotel. He was obviously hospitalised after that. The guards attempted to interview him about it, and he kept his mouth 100% shut, wouldn't speak about it or give any statement about what he saw or who shot him. We heard that during the Regency trial. Would he be inclined to keep his mouth shut again? And certainly that would be the issue.
Are you saying that he is perhaps who Drew Harris is addressing in his comments?
Well, I don't think he could collect the 15 million, could he?
He couldn't collect the 15 million, but he could find himself. Well, according to Drew Harris, the witness protection in the US is open for these guys. And maybe it is, maybe it is. Maybe they don't have enough of their own.
Yeah.
We, of course, have witness protection here also. So, presumably if we're looking to convict them, we'd be more interested in having them here. As witnesses here in Ireland. But anyway, look, we'll let that go. Right. Well, look, onwards into next week when we'll see if this is going to be a quick sticking plaster rip off for Sha McGovern, or if it's going to be a more protracted form of torture for him as he tries to fight this extradition.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we're going to be busy with this Kinahan story again for another while.
We are. Absolutely.
You've been listening to Crime World, edited and presented by me, Nicola Tallant, co-presenter Niall Donald, produced by Ian Malini, art and design Enda Bulger, assistant producer Clodagh Meany, research assistant Nasa Kumaski, and audio editor Jason Malini. If you like this show and love true crime, follow and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe and watch on our YouTube channel.